and other social science. I won't take more than 10 minutes, I hope. In that connection, I just wonder, it's not merely, just a minute, it's not merely the difference between sociology and anthropology. I have sarcastically, I have told you that sociology about some commented about sociology, which the sociologists would certainly not like. But anyway, see, the greatest difference between anthropology and any other social sciences is that you have lots of potentiality to do creative thinking in anthropology. I've been writing a book, not writing a book, but I'm collecting this is also for the first time I'm disclosing. The title of one of the books which will be coming in future will be My Kind of Anthropology.
Oh, very interesting, sir.
My people know. I mean, those who are very closely, even my family knows, and some of my scholars and some of my colleagues know. That will be a collection of my articles, of course, but My Kind of Anthropology will be the title of the book, in which whatever I think about anthropology and all the things, that I'll be, of course, writing. That's very much. Because, I don't have to do anything else other than anthropology. Hardly for some time I just go and listen to the news and all. Otherwise, what I do, I take my car, I tell my driver to just roam about the city and come down, and I enjoy. I told you that I do it for my own satisfaction, Swanta Sukhay, and Swanta Sukhay for that. So in that connection, I thought that I must tell you that anthropology is a discipline. Of all the social sciences, anthropology is such a discipline where you can show and you can exhibit, you can manifest, and you can bring out all possible creativity that is in your mind. Just like music, sculpture, painting, art, they're all creative things, There is no limit of the creativity in those things, Likewise, I consider in anthropology also, if you really try to explain about others' culture, there are so many different ways through which you can use all possible creativity that is inside you. This is one advantage which I don't think in any other social science. You have the full liberty to exhibit your creativity. This is one thing I, of course, wanted to tell you. Then again comes one thing very often puzzles people. That is, should an anthropologist claim to be authentic? An anthropologist writes a voluminous book about a culture. Based upon his intensive fieldwork, I do agree. But should he consider himself to be authentic, or his report should be taken as an authentic report only? No, I never claim. Why? In spite of the fact that 13 months is not a small period I've spent with them, day and night. In Chara Island, I was the only man from outside world. Otherwise, only the native people were there. For 3.5 months, I spent there with them. That doesn't mean that I should claim that I'm authentic. Why? Because culture is very fast changing everywhere. And particularly in this 21st century, because of the burst of technological communication system, not only road, or aeroplane, but this electronic communication, It has made the world very small. We have the concept of global village, okay? See, the island of Chowra, which was supposed to be the land of wizard, where it was so difficult, you have to read my second chapter of my book, that how I have reached Chowra, then only you can imagine how inaccessible and how inhospitable that island was. But now it is very easily reachable. You can go very well, no problem. So many changes have taken place, So culture changes so fast. I have already told you that just like Rip Van Winkle, I was surprised when I landed there after 27 years. Therefore, one anthropologist mustn't claim to be authentic, number one. Second thing, objectivity. This is very important in any science. It is the base of any science. One has to be objective. Okay? We also teach our students in class that you have to make objective study, and for objective study, a lot of methodologies, cultural relativism, empathizing, all these things are just that anthropology should be as objective as a natural scientist. We try our level best to be objective in our anthropological researches. But are they, or should we consider them to be objective? I said no. We can only try to be objective as far as practicable. That should be our motto. That should be our ethics. But we cannot ever be objective. This is also my conviction. On the one hand, I teach and I practice to be as objective as possible in my anthropological researches. But on the other hand, it is also my conviction that objectivity cannot be obtained in anthropological researches. Why? There is a reason for it. Because, first of all, data collection in anthropological researches is a subjective matter. This is a very important sentence I'm speaking. I've written it in a book also. Data collection in anthropology is a subjective matter. How can there be objective interpretation of this data? Suppose you are given a problem to study a particular community. I also study. You will study according to your convenience, and I'll study according to my convenience. My timings will be different than yours. My informants will be different than yours. You will see some of the phenomena, and most of the phenomena you will not be able to see. The same case with me also. I'll meet some informants, know something about it, and on top of that, suppose, let us take the smallest example, the island of Chowra, 2.8 square kilometers. Do I know what was happening 24 hours in Chowra as an anthropologist? No. I slept for 6 to 7 hours. Then morning duties, 2 hours. Then eating, and at most from 4 to 6 hours, I used to be with the informants. When I'm sleeping, what is happening in Chowra, I don't know. A lot of things might have been taking place. So I have in my book quoted Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde. I'll suggest you to go through. That is also available in internet. He's written a beautiful short story. The Happy Prince. The Happy Prince. It's a beautiful short story. Just close the door. My doggy has just opened it, AC is running on. I'll just close the door. Because in the afternoon, he also relaxes, Okay. I was talking about The Happy Prince. It's a short story, but I have given analogical explanation with The Happy Prince with an anthropological researches in my book, Experiencing Anthropology in the Nicobar Archipelago. That's why I'm referring it. There was a prince in a small European town, And he was named, I mean, a happy prince. That means he throughout, as long as he lived, he died at a very young age of 35. But as long as he lived, he was very happy because he didn't have seen anything, trouble, any misery. He had not seen. Everything was provided to him. And people loved him, liked and loved him very much. So once he died, then all his people, admirers, they made a beautiful statue adorned with it with all sorts of gold and diamond and sapphire and everything. And right at the center of the city, the story begins with these lines. High above the sky, on a tall column, stood the statue of the happy prince. Okay? Now, from there he could see 24 hours, all the week, all the months, and 364 days what is happening in the city. Because he was situated at such a place that from there he could see. And the story goes on, you read it, you will enjoy it. And one of the best stories, short stories I have studied. A small swallow, the winter was coming. And these swallows from the European countries during the winter, they came to the south as far as up to Egypt to protect themselves from the snowfall and everything. So that swallow was left behind his friends. I mean, his friends had already left, and he was just, you'll read the story and enjoy. In the evening or night hour, he came to that city and wanted to take some shelter. So that stopped under the feet of that prince, happy prince. And all of a sudden, a drop of water fell down on his head. The swallow looked at the sky and wondered that what a curious thing, there is no cloud in the sky, yet it's raining. It was not raining. The prince was weeping, and the tears had fallen down on his head, swallow's head. Then swallow just, asked the prince. He just flew on his shoulder, and then, why are you weeping? You are a happy prince. You should not weep. Yeah, I'm a happy prince, he said. But when I was a happy prince alive, I never saw the misery. But from this high above the sky on a tall column, I have been situated. And from here I see all around the small town, lots of misery. That girl is weeping, that old lady is worried about this, that. This is how the story starts, And I'll suggest you to, I don't complete the story. I suggest you to, I am continuing. You read the story yourself, you'll enjoy, I'm pretty sure of it. I want to say that a researcher, an anthropologist, is not situated in the field or among the community, high above the sky on a tall column, and looking at everything, observing everything. No, he doesn't do. He sees some of the phenomena taking place in the community, some not. Well, I don't know whether it is being recorded or not. So I may stop for a few minutes and then ensure me that even when the internet is off, then the recording going on, then I'll probably go on. Yeah, now I think you can hear me. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Sir, now I hear you, sir.
But I just stopped because I was going on, continuing my
Recording, yes.
that continued. Yes. When then even if the internet is off, then I will continue to speak, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Now I understand. So I was telling that a researcher in anthropology, when he goes to study a community or he goes to study others' culture, when he goes to study, he is not situated like the statue of the Happy Prince. I lived in Chora for 3.5 months. Did I see everything, what happens in the Chora? And after I left, after 3.5 months, then what was happening in Chora, I don't know. So an anthropologist should not claim to be objective, because data collection in anthropology itself is a subjective matter. There cannot be objective interpretation. But two things. First of all, we should follow all the scientific methods and do work. Still, we should not claim to be objective. Number one. And number two, we should also not claim to be authentic also. Because what I wrote, what I have written in a book about say more than 50 years back, that happened in Chowra. Now it doesn't happen. Now it doesn't happen. So how should I claim to be objective? Because what happens that the future generation will be misled. Here comes the postmodernism, which probably you will be asking me, and I'll be telling you something about postmodernism. One more thing which I wanted to say, that about the importance of anthropology, the teaching of anthropology. I am of the opinion that it should start right in the schools. Students should be taught something about anthropology in schools also. Why I have, and when I was in Allahabad, we have introduced in the school syllabus also. With great effort, we were able to convince the government that it should be. And I was one of the persons instrumental in it. The rest were from the Lucknow University. From Allahabad, I was there, and I was the main person instrumental behind it. So in several schools, anthropology has been included in the syllabus. Why? You see, today, Indian society has been passing through a very critical phase. In the name of communalism, in the name of religion, in the name of ideologies like extremist Mao and this and that, you know very well that in no tribal part of the country you are safe to do field work today. Right from, there is a red corridor that starts from Nepal and goes to Bengal and Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh. All extremists are there. I very much wanted to go to the Abu Jamar in Bastar district. But the deputy commissioner there told me that it will not be safe for you. Even now in Ranchi, I am born and brought up. And after the 40-kilometer radius of Ranchi, if I want to study any of the tribal group, I would not be feeling safe to be there to live whole night and all, because of the extremists and all. These are the problems today. What I was saying, that all these conflicts and tension in the society, now particularly in Indian society, in all the societies, the conflict and tension is there. But now it is most advanced in, or you can say mostly in Indian society and culture. Why? It is because of the clash of the values. It is because of the clash of the values. My value is different, your value is different. My religion is different, your religion is not better. My language is better, your language is not better. My language is superior, your language is inferior. My beliefs and rituals are superior than yours. So this sort of conflict is only because of the clash of the values. And values are what? What are the values? Values are the yardstick through which we decide what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is ugly, what is beautiful. what is desirable, what is not desirable. Now, this judgment or this yardstick for this judgment is our values. And values are the product of our ecology, our technology, our economy. They produce the values. The Kungs do not thank anybody, even if the food is provided to them. It is their values, but it is only because of their subsistence technology, scarcity of food and ecology, and the difficult circumstances in which they live, where the group survival is more important than the individual survival, and many other explanations I can give about the Kungs. So the values differ from one society to another. And the best study of the values is done in anthropology through the cultural relativism. Because in cultural relativism, the researcher forgets his own background. That means forgets his own values. He studies the values of the other in their perspective, not in his own. Therefore, he doesn't have any problem with any value. He doesn't have any problem because he doesn't judge the values of other society from the values of his own society. That is what is the cultural relativism. So the cultural relativism is one of the things which will always be in anthropology important. You know, what happens that a child is born in any community. I'll take another 5 minutes at least. A child is born in a community, he remains egocentric. A child is egocentric. Whenever he's hungry, he will cry. You give him the food, he's satisfied. He looks at any toy, anything, he likes it. He starts weeping for that. The parents provide him and he is silent. Once his belly is fulfilled, he doesn't bother whether my parents have eaten or not. So that way he's egocentric. He grows in the family, in the neighborhood, in the society. And when he grows up, he becomes ethnocentric. He starts learning about his society. And then he thinks that everything of my society is better than others. So he becomes ethnocentric. What is the requirement today in the world, not only in India? What is required today is we have to be homocentric. We have to think about the human society. Your organization, humankind. So we have to think about the human society. So we have to evolve homocentric values so that there is no clash between one group or one community or one religion or one language or one ethnic group or another. This can't be possible unless we have we evolve homocentric values. And out of all social sciences, anthropology and anthropology alone would perhaps evolve homocentric values. This is one importance of anthropology which I haven't read in any book, in fact. But yes, out of my all readings and all, I thought that this is what I should someday write in my kind of anthropology. Last thing about Indian anthropology, you will be asking, and you are free to ask Indian anthropology. An anthropological colleague of mine only yesterday, I was busy, he rang me, and he said that he wanted to write something, so he wanted to consult me. I said, what do you want to consult? His question was very, tomorrow he'll be talking to me again. His question was very funny. Where is Indian anthropology? Now, see question, where is Indian anthropology? Because I know the person also. There are people who are always critique of everything. So I understood. Everybody would not have understood where is introvert, what does it mean, but I understood what he wanted to say and what he wanted to write. Well, he was with regard to the poor quality of research and this and that. I don't know. Tomorrow I'll be talking to him, and then perhaps he will explain what he means by where is Indian anthropology. But now I come to India. I told you earlier, the other day, that yes, I have a very pessimistic view. Indian anthropology. But why? Because of the poor quality of teaching and research, which is today being imparted in all the universities, for one. And number two, I told you, except for the four concepts in Indian anthropology, nothing has been added. And at the same time, I have also told you that any scientific discipline would become sterile unless new hypotheses, concepts, theories are not added to it, on which these are the building block. These are the building block of any scientific discipline, and which is very much lacking. It is also true. Number of articles you might have also read, and I also have read. People sometimes cry about there is no Indianness in anthropology. Why do they cry? That is correct. There is little I'll say no, I'll not say, but I'll say little Indianness in anthropology, because Indian anthropologists, they study the Indian communities, Indian caste and Indian tribes. But what do they do? Instead of developing certain concepts and theories or hypotheses or anything, they borrow the hypotheses, concepts, and theories from either American anthropology or British social anthropology, and then apply them here. That is, of course, lacking. Whereas I have told you that India is the best laboratory for anthropological researches. We can find out new anthropological lights from the study of the Indian caste and tribe and everything, Indian people, we can find out. Therefore, until and unless, if we want to bring Indianness in anthropology, then we have to look into Indology also. I've quoted about Honigman, that how he says that more fertile and ancient civilizations that existed in India and China, more so in India. And if the ancient scriptures of these civilizations are properly examined, there is a possibility of getting new anthropological light. So these are some of the things which I wanted to share. There were some other things also which has come out of my mind. But anyway, with this, my ideas, which are very much in my mind, I'm writing also, and I'll be writing, I hope, before I lay down, I'll complete all these things. I'll try my level best. You are welcome to ask me, Dr. Gadde, any question from
Regarding, thank you, sir, for your wonderful ideas regarding the authenticity, regarding the objectivity. Your confessions are very closer to reality, and honestly speaking, because all the limitations and the question of objectivity and authenticity, how they are really at stake. So those things are clearly explained. It does not mean that we don't aim for objectivity and authenticity. We do our best and possible extent.
Yes.
That is also nicely articulated by you, sir. Thank you so much. And now I have a question. Because you are a stalwart in an anthropological theory, and you are a learned person, and you are familiar with the authors and books. So I just want to curiously ask a question. From idea to hypothesis, from hypothesis to theory, from theory to scientific law, from scientific law to truth. What are the subtle differences? Because every discipline is in search of truth of particular area of interest. We anthropologists are investigating the truth about human origin, human nature, and humankind, and human cultures, and all. So, yeah, because of the students' point of view, and because lots of solid ground we need to establish regarding these important concepts, from idea to hypothesis, from hypothesis to theory, from theory to scientific law, from scientific law to truth. What are the subtle differences that you see? That's my question.
This is very simple thing, I understand it. See, you said from idea to hypothesis. I just want to make a small, I want to add something. Let us not say idea. Anthropology is these are nothing but the scientific method. You are asking questions from the scientific method. You try to understand the scientific method, that's all. And all replies are there. Science begins with observation and ultimately comes to observation for its final validation. This is a quote from perhaps Gadde and Hatt. There's a book on methodology. There's a book on methodology where this observation, chapter perhaps begins with these words. Science begins with observation and ultimately comes to observation for its final validation. So first is observation. Second stage is hypothesis. Second stage. By an example, Newton saw the apple falling from the tree. We have learnt it in our schools, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even before Newton, for millions of years, and for millions of men and women and girl and child and everybody must have seen apple falling from the tree. And after Newton also, we have been not only apple, but every fruit or anything thrown in the sky that falls down on the ground and falling from. So not that before Newton nobody had seen it falling, and after Newton also. But why Newton? Because he not only saw this, he not only looked at the phenomena. This falling of apple is a phenomenon, natural phenomena. Okay.
Yes.
So this phenomena was not merely looked at by Newton, but it was observed by Newton. Here is the difference between merely looking at anything, be it natural phenomena, social phenomena, tribal phenomena, caste phenomena, whatever it is. A general public just looks at with his eyes. Observation is also done by his eyes, but at the same time, mind is observation. The definition of observation is the examination of the phenomenon, not merely looking at. The moment you say examination, that means why it fell down straight down on the earth, why it didn't go up, why didn't it fall zigzag, why not left, why not right, but straight here. He started questioning. Questioning started. So when you observe anything, if you merely look at it, no question will come in your mind. But if you are an anthropologist, you know the importance of anything you see. Come out of your residence and see the street, and people have been see the behavior there. If you are looking at, no problem, motor vehicle is going this way, that way. But if you observe the things, then you will find a difference. Understand? So observation is the best of the, rather, beginnings of science happens from observation. Any discovery in science, Galileo, or you can say, what is the Archimedes? He was taking bath in a tub and he found that he became light, and from all these are there. So an anthropologist observes the phenomena. He doesn't merely looks at. And when you are looking, then you try to find the causal explanation. This word also several times in my earlier session I have used, causal explanation, cause-effect phenomena. Why didn't this, the starting question, why did it come here only, not there? So it starts trying to find out the cause. When you try to find out the cause, then comes hypothesis. You start thinking hypothesis, is nothing but relationship between two variables. Any phenomena, a lot of variables will be there. But if you are able to find the true variable for which then the cause effect phenomena is based, is discovered. Take the example of H2O is equal to water. Two molecules or atoms of oxygen and hydrogen, when they meet, water is. Now, once this has been done, then the variables are oxygen and H2O, hydrogen. H2O is water. Okay. So it is two variables, hydrogen and oxygen, and its combination is being. Likewise, in social science, in anthropology, we study the society and culture. We see the cultural phenomena. We don't see the natural phenomena. Natural scientists try to find out the causal explanation of the natural phenomena. And Newton came up with theory of gravitation. Archimedes came with some theory. Galileo came with some theory, and all the theories. James Watt, steam engine. This is how discovery, So first you observe, then try to find out, think about the causes, possible causes, and a lot of ideas will come. And these variables have to be interrelated, and cause-effect phenomena has to be discovered. This is the scientific method. So once the hypothesis is made, then what do you do? Hypothetically, you think, okay, this might be the cause of it. This might be the cause of it. This might be the cause. A number of hypotheses can be prepared. And then you, in natural science, people do in laboratory, experiment. In anthropology, I'll talk not about social science. In anthropology, our laboratory is the society, or our laboratory is the culture. So we try to find out that this cultural phenomena or this social phenomena has been taking at present in the society. What could be the possible cause of it? And then we start thinking this might be called. So this is how the hypothesis is made. After hypothesis, we go to the field. A scientist goes to laboratory for his finding the causal explanation of the natural phenomena. We go to the society, study the culture, and collect the data, and then try to relate the things that how, why this is happening, why that. I'll give you some example also. Well, my Indian examiner of my PhD thesis, there were two examiners. One was from Vienna, Professor Anna Hohenwart, and Indian expert was, you must have heard his name, very famous name, B.K. Roy Burman. Have you heard B.K. Roy Burman? B.K. Roy Burman. He has done lots of work, He was supposed to be the encyclopedia of social sciences and this, that. He asked me, at the end of my viva voce examination, that what did you observe typical. What I said was, so smaller the island, more industrious the people, and bigger the island, lazier the people. See, now he started questioning me, how do you relate the nature of the people with the size of the island? He was not getting satisfied that how could you relate? I said, yes, sir, I can relate it to you. And then I explained everything. Not only, this is a small thing, I said, that bigger the island, lazier the people, and smaller the island, more industrious the people in Nicobar Archipelago. In Nicobar Archipelago. And I gave him or explained that, look, Chowra example I'm giving you because there are 9 islands where I've lived. I can give you any example of any, but let us, Chowra is a 2.8 square kilometer. Population is so and so. Very thick, thickest density of population in Chowra. No food stuff is there. No food stuff is there. Hardly they can produce of a month because horticulture is there. No plowing and no intensive agriculture, horticulture, and that too, what do they produce? Yams, banana, tapioca, papaya, these things in horticulture. Obviously, the Chaurians have to go to other islands, work in their gardens, construct their gardens and get in share, construct their houses, repair their houses, and do all sorts of work there, just like labor. On there, from there, they get coconut, yams, banana, tapioca by canoe, and they bring. You will see my photographs. You will be surprised to see I've done in 1974, 75, the photographs which I've taken of people coming from canoe, going to canoe. All these things are very interesting. So, if they don't go to other islands, they will have to starve. Their family members will starve. So they became the best navigator in the whole of Nicobar Archipelago, and the people started believing that Chaurians can change the direction of the wind and the wave. They are wizards. They are no wizards. As an anthropologist, I know. I don't have any belief in wizard and anything, I know it very well. But people believe. Why? Because of these reasons and these reasons. Because I could not have, until and unless I have lived with them, I would not have been able to understand it, why this is so. But this is very simple. And in the bigger island, what happens? In the bigger islands, they know that the Chaurians will come, they will thatch their roof, everything will be done. So they have become lazy. The population was also very thin. In Teresa, which was 27 square kilometer, only 351 people were there at the time when I was working there. In Chowra, it was 2.8 square people, more than 2,600 people were there. So thinnest density of population in Teresa, thickest density of population in Chowra. Compare them, see their nature, you will understand automatically. You will start relating the variables. And then you will find that this is the reason, So when the hypothesis become true, okay, you have made your hypothesis. Hypothesis can be, is your hunch also. It can be based on your hunch, and it can be based on your pilot survey. It can be based upon your library work. You know something about the people there, and then you, okay, this is happening. Because I told you that as from Calcutta Anthropological Survey of India office itself, they started warning me, you want to die or commit suicide, you want to go to Chowra, this sort of warning I had received, So I was thinking, why do they? Oh, this is I went there, I started, lived with them. Then I tried to, everything came into my mind and things began. A lot of such observations are there. I mean to say, once your hypothesis is correct, this hypothesis will be tested by future researchers. This hypothesis will be tested by future researchers in different sites and different localities, different communities. If they also find it true, gradually it will develop and become a concept. And the concept ultimately becomes a theory. Concept, gradually, when concept is long and all the well established, then ultimately it becomes a theory. So this is the difference. You said idea, hypothesis, concept, theory. No, observation, hypothesis. Then comes experiment in natural science and data collection and analysis in social science or in anthropology. And then comes the conclusion. If your hypothesis is correct, it may be wrong also. Your hypothesis may be wrong also. No problem. But then if it becomes correct, it gives rise to a hypothesis. That's what I told you. That any study should give rise to a hypothesis at least. At least. And then in course of time, when different researchers, examine that hypothesis, your hypothesis, and they find it in different situations correct, it will become a concept itself. The same happened with nature, man, spirit complex. The same happened with sacred complex and all. So this is how the thing. One more thing, you must have been knowing in anthropology there are two types of writings, or in ethnography there are two types of writings. One is called ideographic and another is called nomothetic. Nomothetic. Is perhaps these were coined by Radcliffe Brown, because you'll find in Structure and Function Primitive Society also. What is ideographic study? Most of the Indian anthropologists make only ideographic study. That is descriptive study. Suppose they are studying a tribe X. This is the form of marriage in X. This is the form of family in X. This is the form of religion in X. This is the form of economic organization. This is the form. So descriptive is merely ideographic. It doesn't give neither any theories examined, nor any concept is examined. Only given the topic, once go to the field and collect the information and write down details, description of the people. Well, anybody can do. Why anthropology? Anybody can write down about the family of this and family of that and religion of this and religion of that and all these things. What is the difference between the writing of an anthropologist and the layman? Layman can also do ideographic writing. Unfortunately, most of the writings in India today, in PhDs, I have seen hundreds of PhDs I have examined. Articles, being an editor of this Oriental anthropologist for the last 20 years, I must have received hundreds of articles, merely ideographic. No anthropology is there. It has to be nomothetic inquiry. That means you tried whatever you are trying, whatever you're describing, at least try to find out the cause of also. Why? If they are dancing, okay, but why they are dancing and how they are dancing, why they are dancing in this way only. Simple things, Anything you are examining, okay, you describe the event. Be a good ethnographer. Write down every detail of it, but try to find out the cause also. Once you attempt to discover the cause, you may not be able to discover. You may be wrong in your hypothesis, but that doesn't matter. But your effort has to be in anthropological writing to find out the causal explanation of anything what you're writing. You read my book. I have explained every minute thing, why it is so and so, why it is so and so. I have taken the help in my book, in the concluding chapter. epilogue I have written that I have examined all the things of the Nicobar archipelago from the historical material point of view of Karl Marx, from energy theory of Leslie White, from cultural ecological theory of Julian Stewart, from cultural materialism of Marvin Harris, and finally, from human materialism from Paul Magnerella. These are the theories or the concepts on the basis of which I have tried to examine any aspect of the Nicobarese life. Therefore, my study is nomothetic, not merely describing that Nicobarese do such and such things and Nicobarese live such and such things, eat such and such things, play such. No, that's not mere description, but everything has been examined from certain theories, certain concepts in my mind. And this is how the things have been done. So anthropologists, should not only do idiographic study, that any layman can also do. Any layman can describe about the religion of X or the economic organization of X or Y. But no, okay, religion is a why this is so. Why? That is very important. If ever I met you, you may ask me about if you read my book, and then a lot of questions will be emerging from that book. My book, I've written, I don't claim it to be authentic. I don't claim it to be objective. But one thing, very simply, I can claim that in future, it will set a new trend of anthropological writing in India. Yeah. Let me tell you, it was M.N. Srinivas who wrote The Remembered Village. You must have heard the name of this book. You read it, you will find to some extent, not fully, but to some extent, M.N. Srinivas has discussed his interaction with the informant, how he did all these things, this thing M.N. Srinivas has described. But my book is something very different, even from Srinivas. So it's only in Srinivas' book I find that thing, otherwise, I find no anthropologist, at least in India, to my knowledge. Maybe somebody has written, I don't know. But to my knowledge, no anthropologist has written in that fashion, which I have attempted to do. It may be accepted by the learned anthropologist. It may be rejected by the learned anthropologist. I don't know this thing, But anthropology has to be written, and I have written in a different way. My book is absolutely different. Yes.
Yeah, I see your yeah, very creatively and boldly taking steps and making statements on the famous anthropologists. that needs
Srinivas has written very finely because he was so thoroughly educated, he was in Oxford also, and his English is meticulous. Shyamacharan Dube's English was meticulous, I know. And I read about Remembered Village. You'll be surprised to know I've written in my book that if I had read Remembered Village before writing my thesis, probably the very structure of my thesis would have been different. I don't know whether you have read it or not, Remembered Village. That's very interesting. Why the name is Remembered Village? Why the name itself is? Because in 1948, he did his fieldwork in Karnataka. The name of the village is Araikare, just near Mandya district. And he got a fellowship. He went to England. And there was a riot in the hostel where he lived. And during that riot, everything was burnt. So all his raw materials were burnt. He could not complete it. After 10 years, you read the book he has written, the same thing, which I'm telling you. He went to USA and met Soltax, action anthropology, the father of action anthropology. Soltax knew that Srinivas was working on such and such things. He had earlier asked him, what happened to your Rampura? Rampura is a fictitious name. The name village is Araikare. But in those days, there was a style. All the village studies, there have been 17 or 18 village studies in India by anthropologists, and names of all the villages have been changed. That was the style in those days. They wanted to keep the things, secret. They wanted to not to their informants, to disclose the identity of the informant. So even the name of the village was changed. I tell you, for example, Makim Marriott had studied Kishangarhi. Kishangarhi, there is no name. That name is different, which he studied. Likewise, Araikare is the name of the village near Mandya district it is. And he gave the name Rampura. So Soltax gave him a dictaphone. What is dictaphone? Dictaphone is that if you speak out, automatically the typed version will come out. In those days, it was available. Okay. So he gave Srinivas his dictaphone. That Srinivas, you do one thing, I'm giving you the dictaphone. You remember that. Because any anthropologist, the amount of data that he brings from the field, he is hardly able to put 40 or 50% in his research work. So you remember that and write the book. At the behest of, at the request of Soltax, he remembered after 10 years of his fieldwork, he remembered it and has written. That's interesting. But this book was published in 1978, and I submitted my thesis in 1978. So I had not read it, Well, I have a lot of differences with Srinivas, personal differences. Because in 1998, I was in Allahabad University, and I wanted to re-study Rampura. Rampura is the name of the village in the book. I rang up Dr. Ningaya was there in Mysore, Dr. Bhatt was there in Mysore. So then I called them on telephone and wrote also that I want to re-study Rampura after 50 years because I know Srinivas had studied in 1948 and it is 1998. So I'm writing to Professor Srinivas also, and I would like to study. This I wrote the letter. One letter I wrote to Srinivas also. He was in Bangalore. Then it was Bangalore, now it is Bengaluru. So in Bangalore also. Srinivas didn't reply. I was waiting for his reply. And I was a batch of students, Then it so happened that I just found out his number from the directory, telephone directory, 1998. And I rang him. He was sick then. His wife, or probably lady was there. She lifted the telephone. I told that I am so and so from Allahabad University. I want to talk to him. I wrote a letter to him also. It must have reached him. So can you remind him? My name is. Then Srinivas took the telephone. Yes, I said, oh yes, I have received your letter. Yes, sir. I just want your blessings. I want to restudy the village. No, you must not go. He was angry upon me so much I cannot tell you. Nobody, I think, has been ever so angry with me. I said, why, sir? No, no, you will go with the novice student, and I have built up my rapport with the people for last 50 years, and you all people will novice are there, you will destroy. Well, I was for some moment upset. But then I wanted to now reply to him. When he completed, I said, look, sir, I don't need to go to your permission to go to Araikare. I know the name of the village is Araikare, not Rampura. I don't need your simply permission. India is a free country. I can go anywhere. I just wanted your blessings. For that, I called you. Number one. I don't need otherwise. I can go. And one more thing I wish to remind you, sir, or tell you. I have studied the Nicobar Islands. I don't consider Nicobar to be my property, that any young anthropologist, if he goes there and studies, I'll only be happy. That's all, and that's enough. Then he again started, no, I don't mean that, I can arrange, I'm telling my secretary, he had a secretary, I'm telling my secretary, she will arrange another village for you. No, sir, thank you very much. I can manage. I won't take help of you or anybody. I straightforwardly told him. I put up the telephone. I went to Mysore. Then we selected another village, which was about, say, 12 miles away from there, Sundahalli village. It was mainly lived by the Lingayat community, because in Karnataka, in that part, Lingayat and Vokkaliga, they are the two. So I studied it was very nice stay. And after the study was completed, then I went to Mysore. Dr. Ningaya was there, Dr. Bhatt was there, and so many, all people knew me very well. They organized a lecture also for me. And when I told them that I had such a discussion with Srinivas, oh my God, they were more, I was not angry with Srinivas. He was an old person, okay, I don't bother. He was an old person. And I should not say anything. But then at that moment, I had very firmly replied him these things, But they said to me, no, it is Srinivas, because of whom anthropology in South India has not flourished. He gives always preference to sociology. Remember? Ningaya and all, they started telling me, who will stop you from going to Araikare? I know the village. Come on, you come with me to Araikare. I'm like, no. I will. But because of my respect for that old man, I won't go to Araikare as long as he's alive. Maybe that someday I go and see what is this Rampura. This is how the things were. So this personal difference had been, but my personal difference is different. Academy is different. My personal difference must not come or must not encourage any academic difference with anybody. This is my conception.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you for revealing your personal experiences with M.N. Srinivas, Professor M.N. Srinivas. Yeah, sadly, many anthropologists, I don't know, for employment's sake or for other sake, they associated themselves with sociology, and which hindered the progress of anthropology in the Indian scenario. I frequently hear that. Yeah, but anyway, this is our time now to
Yes,
take off.
you are absolutely right. Absolutely right in the sense that for the sake of employment, some of my students in anthropology, they are now heading the department of sociology also. And despite my personal opinion about anthropology and sociology, that is a different thing. And for the sake of employment, you are right. But anthropologists in India should not be deterred. They should not bother about all these things. And right in the beginning, I told you, anthropology is not for everybody. It is for the selected people who have got special framework of mind. They should only do anthropology and do sincere anthropology. Uh, if they only do magnificent research work and carve out a place in world anthropology, they will get a lot of opportunities. They will get a lot of opportunities. But first of all, they have to improve their own quality. And alone they cannot. Young boys cannot alone. The teachers have to be such. They should. I still remember Professor Vidyarthi. How many classes he might have taken? He was the world president of anthropology, so he didn't have any time to take up the classes. But whatever he took classes, oh, it was so interesting. I still remember a lot of things, So that is there. The teacher should teach well. A student should also study well and do good research. If they do it, I'm sure that anthropology will be recognized nationally and internationally, both. We don't have competition with sociology. Sociologists do not have that much of practical training as anthropologists have to. In anthropology, you have to learn biological anthropology in the practical classes. You have to learn physical, archaeological anthropology. There also is practical, in social culture anthropology, you have to learn fieldwork and all these things. It is not that rigorous training is in sociology. So we should not be envious of sociology. We shouldn't be in competition with sociology. We should follow our own in-depth studies and qualify that way and carve out a place, not only in India, but in the world anthropology. India, and it can be done very well because India happens to be the best laboratory of anthropological researches. What are we doing? We don't need to go to Trobriand Island. We don't need to go to Papua New Guinea. We don't need to go to Samoa Island or anywhere. In India, you have all the cradles of cultural development. You have gathering hunting people. You have plain agriculturists. You have hill agriculturists. You have intensive agriculturists. You have horticulturists. You have artisan group. You have pastoral groups. What else you need to know about the culture? You study their culture, and then you try to find out the similarities and differences between cultures. I'm sure that we can bring out very new things in anthropology, which will be accepted by world anthropology. Instead of doing that, if we are just comparing, of course, employment, market of anthropology is not as good as other social science subjects. It is a reality. But this reality can only be compensated through hard work, through doing sincere anthropology, through sincerely doing anthropology. This only can compensate. Just by complaining, we cannot compensate this gap or this shortcoming.
That's wonderful. That's a powerful observation and a prescription also. You are pointing towards the solution. Thank you for that insight, sir, practical insight. When we have anthropologists across the world and thousands of anthropologists, um, um, so a lot of cultural studies, the anthropological studies are undertaken. At this point, what exactly I'm looking for is what are the universal principles that anthropology can uh, prescribe to describe a human nature. At the same time, cultures from people group to people group may differ, but a human nature, wherever they go, whatever the people group might be, I think we need to some theoretical frameworks to explain the human nature, the principles of human nature, and the differences in human cultures, and how and why the differences happen in human cultures. But whereas human nature, what are the common principles, universal principles that we can come up with, so to explain human behavior kind of thing. So the human nature versus human culture. What are your observations?
I'll tell 1 minute. I'll switch on my fan because the electricity has gone, so my AC is
Yeah,
off.
please, sir. Please,
So let me.
please.
See, the question you have asked me, there is not a ready-made answer. There is not a ready-made answer for this. But then, here comes again. I told you in my earlier session, perhaps, that Malinowski is still relevant. Malinowski is still relevant, I told you. You read his theory of need. That will explain so much of things, even about the human nature. Two anthropologists, I would like to name only two anthropologists. The old generation, not generation, but past generation, Malinowski. I'm not talking about his functionalism. That is, I was discussing earlier. You just we deviated our discussion on Malinowski. And second is, remind me of Paul Magnarella. Paul Magnarella. Because I have also the habit of just in continuation, I'll just forget, slip from my mind. Paul Magnarella's concept is human materialism. I told you this is the latest theory in anthropology. Well, why I said Malinowski, his theory of need, he has very nicely described man, how it is different from any other animal through theory of need. If you really understand the crux of the theory of need, you'll understand that Malinowski's target was man is different than any primate or anything, any organism. Man is different. This is what the Malinowski's target was there. So he starts just before the end of the last session. You asked me Malinowski functionalism. Well, I start with his simple definition of culture. One line definition of culture tells about his functionalism. Although it needs elaboration, that's a different thing. But one line of his will tell everything. He says, culture is the instrumental reality. Culture is the instrumental reality for the fulfillment of basic needs of man. That's all. This is in one single sentence. Malinowski has attempted to explain what he meant by culture. And if you explain this definition sufficiently, you will know his functionalism. Culture is the instrumental reality. Remember, Malinowski had a background in physics. So naturally, instruments he must have dealt with in his physics experiment. So in anthropology also, he tried to explain it. Culture, he doesn't take it in abstract, but he considers culture as an instrument. What is the purpose of this instrument? To fulfill the basic needs of man. He starts with permanent series of vital sequence. If I give a lecture on Malinowski, probably 2 hours will be less. So how to sum up, I'm trying to think. You'll see the permanent series of vital sequence. In vital sequence, it talks about impulses. What are impulses? Impulses are involuntary actions that we do. For example, breathing is my impulse. We voluntarily do not breathe. Automatically it's going on. Hunger. Okay? If I want to right now be hungry, I cannot be. Automatically, sometimes the thing will come, I'll feel that I should take something. Thirst. So all these things are impulses. He has listed 9 impulses. He says, when there is an impulse, what happens? Act. Man acts. If you have hungry, you take some food. Gasping for air, this breathing is done. So, every impulse has its act. And after the act is completed, it gives satisfaction. There is an equation: impulse, act, satisfaction. But he says that all these things, impulses, act, satisfaction, are with all the organisms on earth. All have impulse, all act, and all get satisfaction. Out of these, he prepared another list exclusively for man. He called it basic need. He said that man fulfills his basic need under certain cultural circumstances. And there are 7 basic needs, accordingly 7 cultural responses. I'll tell only about one basic need. Sex is a basic need. It's a need. How does man fulfill this basic need? He fulfills it within the institutions of family, marriage, and kinship. He doesn't just mate randomly like the other animals do. Other animals also have the same need or impulse, but they mate randomly. Man doesn't. This is fulfilled under the cultural condition, which is conditioned by family, marriage, and kinship. This is one example only. Or 2, hunger. Okay. Now, Other animals, if you give them, okay, they will eat. Otherwise, they will search whatever they got, okay. But man has a series of economic activities, full-fledged economic organization. Okay, so this is not with other. He says that these basic needs are exclusively for man, but you will find certain things in some other animals also, some items of, and for that he derived need. Because of the basic need, there were certain derived need. If you buy a shoe, you also have socks also. Professor Pedarattaiah, will you give me 1 minute? I'll just some water. I'll just have some water.
Please, sir. Please. Thank you. Aditya, sir. Connect. Your Wi-Fi connect. Oh, help.
Yes, is that electricity is off now. So AC cannot be done. So this, and it has started little bit rain also in Ranchi. So let me be short enough. If you go through this, then you can very well understand the human nature also. So Malinowski's interpretation of the theory of need, permanent series of vital sequence, basic need, cultural response, derived need, cultural response, and integrative imperative. What is integrative imperative is also interesting. Integrative imperative is the need. What is that need? The need is whatever we learn, we transmit it to the other generation. This is possible only again with man. Other animals by instinct they learn. By instinct, not by training. But man, because of different forms of symbolism, like language, script, all these things are symbols, So through which we transmit the learned behavior to the other generation, next generation. And this is how the knowledge has accumulated. I told you in the beginning that your question about the universality of human nature, etc., cannot be given in one single line. But if we study through the viewpoint of functionalism, just as I could find out the nature of the people of the island of Chowra was different than the nature of the people of this, all these things will be automatically getting cleared. This is about Malinowski, say more than 100 years back. Now there is another theory, human materialism. Human materialism is a vast thing. In my class, whenever I have taught the human materialism, before that, I have always made it clear what is historical materialism, what is dialectical materialism, and what is cultural materialism. Then comes finally the human materialism. But in the short, I'll only tell you that all these materialist theories, their basic tenet, basic assumption is that infrastructure is the cause of structure and superstructure of a society. This is a very important line. Infrastructure, is the cause of structure and superstructure of a society. This is Marx's proposition, Karl Marx. And in infrastructure, he includes only one thing, that is mode of production. Mode of production means technology. Technology also the particular subsistence technology. How a group subsists, on which technology the subsistence of a group is. That is the infrastructure. Accordingly, his social structure, accordingly his economic structure, accordingly his religious organization will be. Just take the example of gathering and hunting community. They live in bands, gather. That is their subsistence technology. Hunting and gathering is their subsistence technology. Their social structure is very simple, based upon some members. In 50 members, the band is there. That is the community. Okay, very simple social organization. Economic organization, simple. Same religious beliefs and all these things are different. But you go to study an agricultural community, their mode of production is different. And because of that difference, their social organization is different. Their economic organization is different. Their all social organization is different, everything. Superstructure, that includes science, belief, religion. These things, according to, you can say, Marx, is the superstructure. So superstructure also is because of the infrastructure. A hunting community, hunting gathering community will have more superstition, more belief in religion, magical rights, because they want to get success in their hunting, and this is how they subsist. So their superstructure will be different than those who are agriculturalists or those who are living in the industrial societies and all these things. So this infrastructure is the cause of structure and superstructure. It will take a long discussion, but anyway, when it comes to dialectical materialism, it gives a turning to it. Infrastructure, here also, infrastructure is the cause of structure and superstructure, but in infrastructure, one more thing is that is the relation of introduction, relation of production, or relation with production. This is dialectics, Hegelian dialectics. That mode of production, that means technology. Relation with or relation of production means who owns the technology. Who owns the technology? Karl Marx and Engels were just after the Industrial Revolution in Europe. Technological innovations were at the height at that time in Europe. Big factories were there, and people worked in that factory. So people who worked in that factory, they knew the technology, but the technology was owned by the owner of the factory. So here comes a difference. Two classes, class of haves and class of have-nots. Those who know the technology, they work in the factory, they produce the things, But the owner of that technology is not. Technology will not give subsistence. Mere the knowledge will not give subsistence. They require money. They will get it from there. So the technology they know, but their technology is owned by the factory who owns the factory. Those who own the factories are the haves, and those who do not have nots. This is how the class struggle starts. There will always thesis, antithesis. This struggle will produce another situation That will be thesis. Its thesis will again produce an antithesis. Then struggle will, this is how Marx has described his evolution of human history, from primitive communism to slavery, to feudalism, to capitalism, to socialism, and last is his utopia, communism. In all these things, only this class struggle, a struggle between the thesis and antithesis, gives rise to a synthesis, and then that synthesis becomes a thesis, and its antithesis is produced or made. Then this is how society, human evolution has taken. This is about, dialectical. And Marvin Harris differs. He doesn't talk about dialectics. He says infrastructure includes two things. One is mode of production, as Karl Marx has said. Another is mode of reproduction, which I have used in my thesis, Nicobar. Why this is small, how the density of population is there. So how the population is managed, that in fact makes the social structure and the superstructure. This is cultural materialism. And lastly, human materialism I'm talking, Paul Magnerella. He includes in infrastructure human factor. He says universally, all human beings have certain drives of some sex, jealousy, rivalry, anger. These things are to be found universally in all human societies. And this also determines the course of the society. This also makes impact on the society. See, take the example of Karl Marx himself. He is considered to be one of the most influential figures of human history. A vast world converted to communism, and it's still to this day going on. There was Soviet Union, and then it broke down. That's a different thing. Now in China and in many other countries also, and still the communists are there. So one man, his philosophy, his idea, that changed. So human factor. Take the example of Hitler, Mao Zedong. In ancient times, the Buddha, Mahavir, or even Mahatma Gandhi in our time. So human also is a factor which, in my thesis, I have talked about it, that in the whole of Nicobar, there were only two leaders. One, Bishop John Richardson. He is known as the architect of modern Nicobar. How much influence he exercised in his lifetime, and even now, his impact is there, is a human factor. Another, Rani Lakshmi in Nankauri. You read in my book, I don't go into the detail, how the Rani Hood was there, and what is the impact of Rani there in the central group of Ireland. So human also make impact on culture. Although this also has two opinions. If you read Durkheim, he will outright readily reject. He will say, no, it is collective consciousness. It is the society itself. This is what Durkheim will say. And likewise, Kroeber will also say. That's another opinion. They will say that no, individuals should not be given the credit for this. Rather, to the extent that if there was a musician in Europe, Beethoven, so if Beethoven had not produced that music, somebody else would have done it. If Darwin had not discovered, somebody would else have done it. So that way, there is a school of thought in anthropology that they don't want to give any credit or any that individual has any role in the governance, governing the society and culture. But there is another school also, especially culture and personality school, that says that no, individuals also make impact on society and culture. Examples were there, which I gave you. So these are some of the new aspects that you have asked me, Dr. Pedarattaiah, and I assure you that I'll think over it, and someday I'll give you some more and more convincing reply that whether human culture is, in one aspect, it is universal, but whether what is the method. I mean, psychologists have the method to study human nature, human psychology. Psychologists have already. But in anthropology, how to do all these things, maybe one day I reply to you. I think it must be getting 2 hours. Is that?
Sorry, that internet provider, that a serviceman came and fixing the issue here. So, so he fixed the issue. Please continue, sir. That is very, very interesting and very the structure of the superstructure you are giving.
Yes. Oh, after that, it has not been recorded.
No. Everything is going on nicely. Just I'm summarizing.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Dr. Padari, I think that right now, I don't find anything new, although I know that after this is over, then I'll remember a lot of things, important things which I might have missed to interact with you. Let me see your queries. If, in my opinion, any such queries left.
That anthropological contributions to the 5-year plans. 5-year plans are.
Yes, I can speak something very important in that. When the 5-year plan started in India, sometime in the 1950s, probably 1954 or 52, you might be knowing better. Government of India invited a number of American anthropologists, David Mandelbaum, Mackie Marriott, Milton Singer, Robert Redfield. They were all invited, and their suggestions were taken, perhaps because I was then not knowing anthropology, in the implementation of the 5-year plan. Well, you see, 5-year plan was copied from Russia, and American anthropologists were brought. How to implement it? This is one thing interesting, that this very concept of 5-year plan was Russian, Soviet, USSR. And from there, Nehruji brought, and then American anthropologists were brought together. So what they did, I don't know, or I have not taken any interest to know. But the other day also, I told you, perhaps yesterday or in the previous session, that what anyone, be it government or be it any funding agency or be it any organization like World Health Organization or say World Bank, what do they expect from anthropology? What anthropologists can deliver? I'm very clear in my mind. They can only deliver the scientific or the causal explanation of the problem. Any problem, be it the problem of rehabilitation, be it the problem of resettlement, be it the problem of anything like that, the anthropologists what they could do is only to give as far as practicable and as far as objective solution of the problem. I am using as far as, because you cannot be always objective and you cannot be, this I have already said. So this is what can be at most expected of an anthropologist. Anthropologists do not have as a magic wand, so that they will brush it, because nothing is in their hand. Nothing other than studying and suggesting. And that from the beginning they have been doing. And even today, I know there are funding agencies like Indian Council of Social Science Research, UGC, and numerous others are also there. You'll be surprised to know that I have never applied for any project. Why? Because I believe that anthropologists also have today think that the more the number of projects, the more powerful the anthropologist. This is what the concept is. If you have got dozens of projects, oh, he has got dozens of projects, he's a big anthropologist. My conception is those who are poor in anthropology, they are very rich in projects, because they want to make it money only, and that's all. Let me tell you very frankly. Because project is there, a fund will be given, and this and that, and something will be, a report will be prepared and submitted, and that report, I don't know in which dustbin it will go to the funding agency. Nobody bothers. ICSSR must have been funding no less than 200, 300 seminars, and I don't know number exactly. I don't have any idea about it. But every seminar which I attend, funded by UGC, funded by EACSR, funded by this, funded by that, and Anthropological Survey of India. And they are all with regarding to the development anthropology. All the fundings in the name of development anthropology. Or these days, some more topics have become very HIV, and then AIDS, if you have worked. So all these things are there. You study, if you get a fund, organize a seminar, make a resolution, and then submit it to the funding agency. What happens thereafter, nobody knows. What can anthropologists do? So I don't expect that anthropologists have a magic wand and they will do anything and society will improve. No, we can only give positive, as far as practicable, objective, suggest the problem, solution of the problem. This is what I think the only thing that an anthropologist can do, because thereafter it goes into the hands of the politicians, in the hands of the policymakers, in the hands of the administrators. They execute any plan. So the failure of executing their plan is not the failure of anthropologists. Simply. And big plans cannot be just given to an anthropologist to execute everything, because he doesn't have that infrastructure which the government has. So we should not be very, very highly expecting of an anthropologist to do any miracle. Yes, academic miracle they can do. They can give you insight. They can do some miracle in anthropological theory. That is their work to do, and they should do. But then it goes to the hands of the politicians, to the parliament, to the assembly, to all of these things, And what is happening in the parliament and in all the assemblies is everybody's knowledge. Everybody's knowledge. Least said the better, the least said the better. So, some people have asked me, and in your concern, nation building. What will anthropology do in nation building? He can only say that be homocentric. He can only suggest that don't have the clash of the values. Will the people agree? All people agree? No. We can suggest you the positive things, positive aspects of being a human. I was talking about these things, just a few minutes before. Don't be ethnocentric. In every part, just open the news, TV news, and you find their class in this name and that name. I shut it off, So this is happening in the society. As an anthropologist, I too get disturbed very much. But what can, as an anthropologist, I can only write, and I do write in my editorial, in my paper, I do write. That is what I can do, or any anthropologist can do. It is not within the capacity of anthropologists to change the society. I can suggest you the ways, the method to change the society. An anthropologist can very well suggest, yes. But that suggestion has to be implemented, that has to be executed, not by anthropologists, but by some other institutions. It's a reality, it's a fact. Then why do you shout that what anthropologists are doing? Other anthropologists have, I told you, I gave, the other day I told you, I gave a 27-page report. My dog has again started. Better sit down. You can sit down. So I want to say that what happened to those things, I don't know. But had they, the administration, the government, if they had sincerely, oh, my tea has come. I'll be having tea also with my brother, who is an advocate here in Jharkhand High Court. Sit down. So then probably, probably I tell you that the mega project, Coil Caro Dam project, that would have been completed if those 27-page suggestions which I had submitted as a confidential report, then the project would not have been abandoned. They were so important suggestions. So as an anthropologist, I went there, studied there, prepared with labor, considering all points of view and all things, examining, and then prepared a report and said that, look, you do this thing and the project will be a success. But the project has been absolutely abandoned now. It is not my fault. How can I contribute to nation building? How can I? Tell me. So anthropologists also should not boast so much that they can bring overnight change in the society. Anthropologists should not also, I at least don't boast. I know my limitations. Anthropologists also should know their limitations. Number one, yes, if the suggestions of anthropologists are accepted by the authorities and properly implemented, there can be a lot of changes in the society and the nation would certainly march forward. It is not only the responsibility of anthropologists, but those who matter. Yes, Dr. Vedran, any more question? I think I have tried my level best as far as I could. I did, although I know that I am never satisfied with my writing. I tell my people there that if I'm given another chance to write experiencing anthropology, that book, I'll write it even better. This is I very often say, that if I'm given another chance to write experiencing anthropology in the Nicobar Archipelago, I will write even better than before. So I'm never satisfied either with my writing.
You are giving a very valuable and practical and honest responses, which is this conversation is very productive and useful for future generations, sir. For that much I can assure. The other thing is I'm learning many things, and you are very frank and very truth means the lot of honest confessions. Wonderful, sir. Regarding the nation, India is in the pluralistic, cultural pluralistic
Yes,
context, is the biggest democracy in the world.
of course.
At the same time, thousands of different cultures and languages, and with all this diversity, um, anthropology, you already shared that there's a lot of scope for linguistic anthropologists to come up with excellent assistance to the government for the because of linguistic diversities. Work is very meagerly done in that area, particularly for the welfare of any nation. The welfare of the nation, somebody told, the welfare of the nation lies within the character of the citizens. So the virtues, the values, which irrespective of the differences in the cultures, the universal virtues, the universal values, where anthropologists can really make difference in building the curriculum or promoting the positive ideas for policy facilitation, so that for example, the pragmatic aspects, when we look at the Supreme Court, the chief justices or judges, they irrespective of the different cultures and languages and values and beliefs and religions, so they interpret the constitution, and they give the positive direction, the code of conduct to move forward, so that the coexistence, peaceful social coexistence, and peaceful living together, how things should be done. So I strongly believe anthropologists has to say something in cooperation with this Supreme Court or high courts or district courts. The anthropologists should learn from them, or they should learn from anthropologists. I think both of them should work together as a team to come up with the universal facilitation, if not imposition, facilitation of the acquisition of the universal virtues and values, and what anthropology has to say in that area.
Very nice. Actually, the reply will be only from those things we have already discussed. You see, in Allahabad University, the students who appeared in civil services, or those who had to go to face some interview of anything, very often they came to me and consulted. That, sir, if I'm asked how anthropology is useful in administration or in this and that and that, my simple reply was there that if you are a true anthropologist, you will be a true and good citizen. The very training of anthropology, and most important of them, is the cultural relativism. The most important, that's why I told you, French was, this concept has got still relevance in the society all over the world. Cultural relativism. And that is why I advocate, I plea, and I have tried earlier in Uttar Pradesh to include anthropology as a subject in schools. The training, the class training and the field training, both in anthropology, not merely class training or not merely the field training. These two things will indirectly make any anthropologist, maybe that he doesn't become a doyen of anthropology and all, but then he will be a good citizen. So first of all, we have to, in this pluralistic society, we have to think about it. And if the good citizen, if the good citizen is there, automatically lot of differences will be subsided. Automatically. Why personally, I don't have any conflict with ordinary things, because I try to be a good citizen, because I'm an anthropologist and I have learned anthropology, and that is what anthropology has taught me. And I repeat, the anthropological training in school, in classes, and in the field will make everybody a good citizen. That's why anthropology should be made compulsory in school all over the country, number one. Number two, you're talking about the pluralistic society and how the coexistence to be made. Will you not wait for my work on spiral theory of unity and diversity in India, number one, and coexistentialism of Indian society and culture? Please wait. I will respond all these things. They are very much in my mind. And there is all possibility of a very good coexistential existence of all sorts of people can live together. Yes, I am not disappointed. I'm not, I'm pessimistic, optimistic in this regard. Optimistic in this regard, very much. But there comes the role of anthropology, not in this big dance and making a nation building, etc. But yes, the important task that anthropology can do is that it can make a good citizen. And that is the need of the hour in India, so that we understand the values of others. I understand the value of yours, you understand mine. And this is how all the conflict and tension would evaporate simply. Not like a magic wand, okay, but then gradually it will evaporate. Regarding judiciary, you said that should we learn from the judiciary or judiciary should learn? Well, in that way, I'm again one-sided. Judiciary has to learn from anthropology. Yes. One instance I'm going to give you. Your question was there, but you forgot to ask, because we have been discussing a lot of things naturally one by one. Customary laws you have mentioned. Do you remember customary laws? Yes, I would like to say a few things. Your sound is, you better unmute your sound, you unmute, because your sound is not reaching me.
Yes, sir. How the customary laws and the constitutional law, what is the anthropologist's role to facilitate?
When you talked about judiciary, there I was reminded that you have asked me about customary. See, very simple thing. Again, I would like to remind you of historical materialism, or infrastructure is the cause of structure and superstructure. You remember? Okay.
Yes.
The customary laws, when we talk about the indigenous people, their customary laws. Generally, this is what we talk. The tribal people, their customary laws. A lot of politics, the tribals also and non-tribals also play in the name of customary laws. Let me frankly say, and outspokenly I want to say, a lot of politics is being done and being played in the assembly, in the parliament, and everywhere. But those who are fighting, they should understand one thing. Any of the customary laws are unwritten, number one. Why? Because they were made thousands and thousands of years back. It was not built in a day. Any customary law is not the product of 1 year, 2 years, 5 year, or 10 year, or 100 year. Like the clause number itna of Indian Penal Act, and no, they are the hundreds and thousands of years before. What was the infrastructure in those days? What was the economy of the people in those days? What was the ecology of in those days? That was absolutely different than today. This is 21st century. The total mode of production has absolutely changed. Has not it changed completely? About 50 years back, a paddy field which gave only 5 or 10 months of rice, there we are producing thousands of things, So technology has changed. Everything has changed. Still we are, I don't say that abolish customary law. I would say. Because if you abolish the customary laws, you directly hit the sentiment of the indigenous people. Their identity will be surely changed. But then identity has to change according to the change in the technology, according to change in the things, That has also to be accepted by the indigenous population also. That should be, they should be taught, they should be educated that look, the laws which you want now today to maintain or to retain, they were framed thousands and thousands of back by your ancestors when your subsistence technology was different, your ecology was different, your economy was different, your social structure, your infrastructure, your everything was different. Now the basic infrastructure of the society has changed. So it has to be amended. I'll not say removed. I'll say it needs a change. It needs to be revisited. It needs to be restudied. I came across one small thing, one small thing about a community here, Munda. It was brought by my brother who is sitting here only. He's an advocate in the High Court. Sometime back, some years back, probably I was in Allahabad then, he just referred to me that there was a case of property succession, among the Mundas. Their customary laws is that only the ancestral property will be and only the property will be inherited in the male line, not in the female, because female is married and goes outside. Okay? Okay, no problem. Very many societies, this is there. One single case was there in which 4 or 3 or 4 brothers were there and one widow's sister was there. Okay? All the 4 brothers agreed that whatever they have their property, they willed it to the sister. Nobody had any objection. The objection had the court, the judiciary. That how can it be? It is against the Munda customary law. Female cannot inherit. No. Now this is contradiction, And I don't know what happened to the case ultimately. I don't know. But this was brought to my notice quite some years back. You go to Khasi in Meghalaya. That's a matrilineal society. I don't want to give you the ethnographic detail of the matrilineal society or Khasi because I have worked there, fieldwork, I have done fieldwork there, so I know everything. There. Now, if you go to Khasi, you find the big businessmen among the Khasis because they don't have to pay any income tax. Might be knowing. In the Northeast, no need to pay any tax. If you are working as a government and the Khasi is working as the government, he will not pay any tax. You have to pay the taxes. So many liberties are there. And they have all now gone for this business also. So huge property they have. Now that is a matrilineal society and this huge property was by the help of his sons, definitely who ran from here to there, from Delhi to and all the places. Who will inherit the property now? All these things will be done by the... So time has changed, technology has changed, infrastructure of society has changed. Accordingly, subsequent change has to be brought in social structure also and in superstructure also. So here judiciary doesn't have to learn from, we don't have to learn from the judiciary. It is the judiciary can learn a lot of things from anthropology. This is my firm conviction and I stick to it. What the judiciary will tell us, some only clauses of the rules that were initially framed by the British. Now, a lot of amendment, one after another amendments are going on. So if the laws can be amended, why don't the customary laws could also be amended? I don't say to abolish. I say they should be rethought, and then accordingly, that which suits the population, that which doesn't, not suits me, but the people for whom the customary law is made. So those amendments which will suit them, that should be done. There should be no politics on this. Yes, customary laws.
So, because the customary laws are very strong in the community, at the same time, the law and order issue is implemented by the government.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of ethnic conflicts and that kind in the regionalistic feelings and bias, gender biases, and different sorts of religious communalism, religious fanaticism, and all these things are day by day lots of unwanted things we see in the news. So in that kind of context, what media has to learn from anthropologists, and what how anthropologists and these law and order implementation of the policies and all these things should go together, work together, kind of. I think, how do you see that, sir?
First of all these conflicts, I earlier told you that is 99% of them are because of the conflict of values, clash of values. That has to be avoided. For that, people have to be educated. And only education of anthropology will be sufficient to explain them. And probably if this effort is done, then a lot of things will start improving. Not overnight we can change. Overnight we cannot educate the whole mass, but gradually it will be done in course of time, number one. Of course, this ethnic conflict or conflict in the name of religion or language, etc., they are all the clash of values. Then you talked about gender also. Yes, that is also a problem, not only here, but all over the world, even in the developed countries. It is there, even in the countries it is there. But until and unless I personally get interested and for some time also study, I should not speak anything on guesswork. This is what I would like to say. I would not like to say just on guesswork. You have drawn my attention to the issue of gender, and which I find in the newspapers and in all over the world, this is somewhere more, somewhere less. Well, I have not given any serious thought to this problem, it seems to me. Otherwise, I would have spoken. I assure you, Dr. Pedarattaiah, that one day or another, I'll reply to it, because I have the habit of speaking only for which I am convinced. I have a conviction. And my conviction is that all sorts of conflict and tension that prevailing in the society today is because of the conflict of the values. And the values can best be improved by the education in anthropology, because only anthropology can develop homocentric value, which is the need of the hour today.
Sir, for example, you told a very wonderful statement that a true anthropologist will be a good citizen of the nation.
Yes, I have always said it.
So I admire that statement, but I have a question, sir.
Yes,
Anthropologists, they respect the beliefs of others, and for example, if a community practices the if not now in the historical context, the sati, the practice of sati, the practice of a human sacrifice, the practice of these tantric, the worship related sacrifices, human sacrifices. So if that particular community have that practice, should we respect? And because of the
no,
relativism,
we,
because of the
no,
cultural relativism of
right,
the
right,
concept.
right,
So
right.
how should we be a good citizen of the country, at the same time be a good anthropologist? Uh,
Very, very sharp question you have asked me. But again, its answer lies in some theory. You see, answer also is there in anthropology. I can convincingly tell you. You also said that in historical perspective. In historical perspective. In historical, when you're talking about, then you have also to understand or tell me the infrastructure of that historical period of the society. So any custom, any tradition, any belief, any ritual, you have to look into this, that at what time and space in that particular committee it had evolved or developed. What was then the belief, what was the infrastructure, and according to the belief system was there. It can never be justified killing anybody or making unprivileged anybody. Some people are privileged, some people are not privileged. These things cannot be justified by any standard of human values. But the values also are the product of the infrastructure of a society when it has changed today. See, about 100 years before, women were not given right to vote in America. Slaves were not given right to America. So long time these values change because of the change in superstructure, because of the infrastructure change. I tell you, historical materialism can explain everything. It is in the whole of social science, it is the only scientific theory. You can say historical materialism, not, of course, dialectical materialism. No. Historical material, pure, what Marx has said, that is the only scientific theory in whole of social science. You know, at the grave of Karl Marx, what his lifelong friend and collaborator, Friedrich Engels, what he said, you can read in Marvin Harris' book, you'll find it. He said, he compared with Darwin, that Darwin gave the theory of evolution of organism. And I don't remember the quote, but the meaning of the quote is the same. The same thing Karl Marx gave in the field of evolution of human history and culture. So he has compared it with Darwin's. And some of the scholars have went on even to the extent to say that Karl Marx was one of the most influential figures in human evolution. This is the word. But he has been ignored in anthropology also. For 75 years, the teaching of Karl Marx was not done in any Western country. Because of dialectical materialism, I may discuss some other time why. But if you purely think about the historical materialism, Karl Marx, you will find answer of everything. Any such practices like sati pratha, human sacrifice, tantrism and all, or ritual cannibalism, they all developed in some time in the history. At that time, the infrastructure society was different. Accordingly, their social structure was there. Accordingly, their belief system, which is superstructure, was there. And they did it. I don't justify. However, that was in accordance with its infrastructure. In accordance with its infrastructure. Now, thousands of thousands, the 21st century we have come up. So world over the infrastructure has changed. So the belief system also has to be changed, and that should be abolished. Those which are harmful for mankind, which are harmful for individuals, which are harmful for women, such customs or rituals must be abolished. Anthropologists must say, of course we respect. Of course I told you the other day that when Abednego was scolding that lady, I was at a fix and I felt contradiction. I was, of course, sympathizing with the old lady. At the same time, I have written in my book, it also came to my mind that should we leave the Chaurians at this very condition? No. They should also be, they should also know the fruits of civilization. They should also know the things, and accordingly we should do. So they cannot be. This is the difference between the isolation and what you, of course, I don't agree with this integration and all, which is the national policy to integrate them in the mainstream. This is, I've read about Nehru and Panchashila and everything. But the thing is, about the Jarwa, I was asked, I was the member of the cell for the development of the Jarwa. And I very frankly said that don't treat the Jarwas like Jews. You pick up certain guys, young boys, give them the best education in best school in the mainland. And on every holiday, you leave them in their own surrounding. From among them, the leadership emerge, which will do everything for the benefit of it. I give you the example. Bishop John Richardson. He was liked by all the Nicobaris and also disliked by the non-Nicobaris because he was very strict. For 200-300 years, different missionaries from France, Denmark, Austria, Dutch, they all came and stayed in Nicobar Islands and tried to evangelize the people or proselytize the people, but they could not succeed. It was one South Indian person, V. Solomon, his name was V. Solomon, who came to Nicobar in 1893. And he picked up a bunch of young boys, took them to Rangoon, and gave them education. When that boys came, they became the leaders of the society. And the most influential leader became the Bishop John Richardson, who is today called the architect of the modern Nicobar. Now, how this process happened, they also were, Nicobarese also lived naked. Earlier you see the photographs of 102 years and 200 years. They lived naked, roamed about naked, But you just go to Nicobar today, go to Car Nicobar. Yeah. So, of course, Christianity became the factor of their change. But I want to say simple thing, that from among the community, the leaders would emerge as it has emerged in Nicobar archipelago and brought changes. So anything which is not today's superstructure, thousands of years back, you may justify. For example, a simple thing I tell you, in Islam, 4 marriages are there. Most people condemn it. Or all Muslims do not have 4 wives. No. Okay, the religious text it is right. Why? Because Islam emerged in the deserts of the Middle East, where the fighting between the tribes was there, and the men died in the fights, and women become widow. So what happened? That Prophet Muhammad allowed that, yes, who will take care of the widow? Once any other man widow marriage is very prominent, very, very much acceptable in Islam. So this was a product of that stage of society when it was so and so. There was a reason, there was a rationale behind that. There was a rationale behind that. Today it may not be. Today it may not be. So likewise, any custom that we should not empathize with every custom which is harmful for human being, which is harmful for the society. An anthropologist must not support that, must not empathize with that. Rather, he should try to explain the things, that how these things had emerged, at what time and space. At that time, it may have a rationale. Now the infrastructure has changed, the superstructure has changed. Now it has no rationale. So it is not needed. It should be done. I hope that this is the simple reply which will convince you that why should we not sati pratha or tantric pratha? Why should we not? Now it is not necessary. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Regarding the universal rights, universal human rights, and the role of anthropologists, and the right to life, the right to education, the right to health, the right to development, the right to dignity, and the right to autonomy. And so regarding this...
Look. Dr. Pedarattaiah, look, this is the very concept of human right. Is a Western concept. If you ever desire, I'll give you a special number of Oriental anthropologists which was published in 2003 or 4. It was guest edited by Paul Magnarella, my friend. He is my friend who has given this human materials. There is one article human right in ancient India. Human right in ancient India.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. That was written by a very learned man who was the Chief Justice of Punjab and Haryana High Court. He was South India, from South India, I don't know which state. Ramajoaz. I met him 2 times. He was governor of Bihar then. in the 2003-4, he was governor of Bihar. I incidentally met him and talked about anthropology and talking. And when I told him that, yes, we are going to bring out a journal on human rights, he said, I want to contribute an article. He said, okay, I'll send you the digital copy of that also, if I remember. You read that. A very long article is there. And Paul McDonnell also very much appreciated. Why the question is the human right which we are today talking about is absolutely a Western concept. In Western society is very much okay. But if you see ancient India, nobody talks about right. Everybody talks about duty only. There are numerous, and he has quoted so many texts from Sanskrit and then translated them into Hindi, and finally comes to the conclusion that in ancient India, there is no reference of anybody talking about the right, that this is my right, only about the duty. And comes to the conclusion that if we do our duty properly, what is expected of us, there won't be any violation of human right. Very simple thing. There is prescribed norm that this is the duty of the king. Prescribed not this is the duty of the priest. Prescribed this is the duty of the citizens. Prescribed for the father, duty for father, for the son, for the student, and for every section of society, this is their prescribed duty. And when every member of the society follows appropriately what is prescribed duty for him or her, Rama Joyce has so nicely concluded that there won't be any violation of human right. I still, in a traditional way, I say that if we do our duty properly, everybody, if does, which is a utopia, I cannot expect everybody to do his duty. Then there cannot be any violation of the right. But the thing is that, again, human nature is guided by a lot of things. Like I told you, these are drives, just like sex drive, likewise jealousy, and a lot of psychological things like gregariousness, and then one more thing is there in English. I'm forgetting social psychology, I've read it. So these things sometimes come and they distort the equilibrium of the society, and then some social problem begins, but then one has to study the problem, try to find out the exact cause of the problem, and then suggest the solution and give it to the government. Other than that, what anthropologists can do? First of all, anthropologists will say that, look, if you do your duty right, then the question of human right will not, violation of human right will not be there. Everybody does his duty as per his prescribed duty, then no question of violation of human right. If the labor is there, he is working his duty, and if as a duty you have to take care of the labor you are taking, why should you do any agitation? You will not do any agitation. It's a simple example. If you are the master, you have some labor, your labor are happy because you do your duty, you take care, you should take care of them. And they also do that, yes, he takes. So in that case, both the parties, if they understand their duties properly, there won't be any violation of anybody's right, neither of the owner nor of the labor. This is one example, it's a hypothetical example I'm giving you, But India is such a vast country, vast democracy, pluralistic society. of all sorts of different values, there has to be clash. And there are, this is also true that the people and institutions that are in power, they also try to impose their ideologies. Then also the problem starts. Then also the problem starts. At the national level, at the local level, or at the regional level. If you impose some ideologies upon the mass, it may not be accepted to all. In that case, there will be conflict. So India is passing through such a phase, which is really very critical. I told you earlier also. And anthropologists should, of course, including me, I'll say, should pay attention to it and try to find out the, first of all, causal explanation of it, and therefore, thereafter, possible solution can be suggested. This much I can say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. Yeah, sir. And we will stop here, sir, and and I will come up with the other time some other questions.
Anything.
And
Yeah. I also feel a little bit of exhausted, because things and a lot of repetitions and all goes. But I must confess that I was also happy to say a lot of things which I usually try to write and express. But then I've expressed a lot of things which I would have written, in my editorials. And I remember that I have also promised you to send some articles, two I promised. One I remember just now, that on human right, you said Ramajoy's article, I can send you. You can go through it. And another important, yes, anthropology, sociology, the editorial, the present editorial, this current issue editorial. There you will find what I have spoken, those views reflected. It's a brief editorial, not a very detailed one. But of course, there is a message. There is a message for the anthropologist, not to fight with the socialist, not to have competition with the socialist, competition with oneself. Competition with oneself, not with others. Thank you very much, Dr. It was very much pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.